Almost all of us have had times in our lives when one or both of our parents yelled at us. Although the warnings were frequently well-deserved, there were also times when they were completely unfair. We can identify a thread in Grand Theft Auto 3 and GTA Liberty City stories that, while being more extreme, reflects the condition we described very well. It looks really dull and is about Toni Cipriani's connection with his mother. It's even possible to claim that Toni's mother is a pain in his ass and that she crossed the line at one point. In addition, it transpires that the story on which this thread was based was one that appeared in the American television series The Sopranos. Welcome to the Gaming Investigators channel, and let's get down to business. In 1998, Toni Cipriani returns to Liberty City a few years after he murdered an important member of another mafia on behalf of Sal, presumably a capo regime. However, Toni's return is not all sunshine and rainbows because there are numerous issues that are present from the start, including Toni's mother. The first mention of this case can be found on the official GTA Liberty City Stories website, where we can find an email from Ma Cipriani written to the Liberty Tree newspaper. The woman tells there, among other things, that Toni will soon come to Liberty City from what she described as a long vacation. Nevertheless, a significant part concerns the relationship between the woman and her son. Ma Cipriani speaks bluntly that Toni Cipriani is not a real man in her opinion. Toni may have the face of a caring youngster, but he still lacks a certain level of toughness. In addition, she doesn't believe Toni is attempting to improve their relationship. The man supposedly goes about his daily routine without so much as writing or calling his mom. Not to add that Toni's mother is also upset that her son cannot settle down and start a family with a respectable woman. Our understanding of this woman's character is further enhanced in the letter's subsequent paragraph. Cipriani's mother did not hesitate to mention that she repeatedly beat Toni as a child. It probably looked like the woman thought that using domestic violence was a good method of upbringing. Not only that, Ma Cipriani mentioned that she still beats Toni. She says that whenever the opportunity arises, she'll gladly hit Toni with a frying pan and put his hand under the glowing fire from the grill. And although we all know that in previous decades, let's call it traditional upbringing, where some kind of violence was used was more commonly chosen by parents than today, here we're dealing with clear child abuse. Furthermore, the argument of Ma Cipriani's actions is completely pointless. After all, how can you punish a child for not being manly enough? However, looking at Toni's behavior towards his mother, it's clear why the woman did it. Beating a child arouses serious fear in him.
What it means to be a tough guy. Sorry, Ma. Yes, Ma.
When parents severely yell at a child, the child will think 3 times before doing the same thing he was reprimanded for again. Now let's imagine that Ma Cipriani used such treatments for many years, cultivating them into Toni's adult life. It's no wonder that Toni Cipriani obeys his mother, since the mere thought of her makes the man simply afraid of her. The woman kept beating Toni, probably expecting that he would eventually become more manly and stand up to her sooner or later. But Toni's mother definitely went too far, and the result was completely the opposite. In the meantime, let's move on to some missions in GTA Liberty City Stories that we have to do for Ma Cipriani. We can actually divide these missions into 2 types. The first type of mission concerns men who somehow impress Toni's mother and are kind of a competition for Cipriani. For example, in the mission Snappy Dresser, Toni's mother seems to be very pleased with Giovanni Casa, a local butcher who runs his meat business in Chinatown. The woman also mentions that Giovanni regularly calls his mother, which she thinks is commendable.
You could learn a thing or two from Giovanni Casa. He calls his mother every day.
Toni decides to take a closer look at the case, but the picture he sees can surprise everyone. Giovanni dresses up as a baby and plays with prostitutes in the park. Cipriani takes advantage of the situation without hesitation and snaps a photo of the butcher, which he later gives to his mother. Interestingly, even this gives no results.
Take a look at my photo. It's of your good man Giovanni Casa wearing a goddamn diaper.
Is this how you spend your time? Sneaking around in the woods, taking pictures of men? What is wrong with you, Antonio? You shame me.
But...
And diaper or no diaper, he's still a better man than you.
Nevertheless, this was not the end of Giovanni Casa's story. In the Dead Meat mission, Giovanni Casa declared to all and sundry that he would no longer pay protection money to the Leonis. As a consequence, Toni's mother continues to make fun of her son, implying that Toni's father wouldn't mess around with Giovanni and would turn him into minced meatballs instead. As you can guess, Toni took these words literally and decided to deal with the butcher once and for all. Dan Sucho from the Grease Sucho mission was the second individual who, let's say, posed a threat to Toni Cipriani's reputation. Toni's mother believes that her late husband would win a race against Sucho to humiliate him and kill him in cold blood in the end. Well, because Toni wants to prove himself, he executes his mother's plan from A to Z. On the other hand, the latter type of mission are tasks directed against the triads. It's in this mission, Big Rumble in Little China, that Toni Cipriani once again tries to win the approval of his mother. Toni's mother got it into her head that Toni was afraid to come home early because of the triads.
You can't fool me. I know why you don't move back in here. You're running scared of some triads.
In addition, the woman believes that her late husband would not let any triads look down on him. So, as befits Toni, the man goes to Chinatown to massacre members of the triads, supposedly to convince Ma Cipriani that the woman is wrong. As a curiosity, it's worth mentioning that in the mission Taking Out the Laundry from GTA 3, Toni's mother also mentions the triads. Specifically, we can hear that supposedly Toni's father had no problem with the triads back in Sicily. Of course, this is a bit of nonsense, because it's rather hard to believe that the triads had any interest in sending their people to Sicily. In contrast, looking at the last mission for Ma Cipriani in GTA Liberty City Stories called No Son of Mine, the woman went completely insane. Toni's mother hired hitmen to kill her son because she couldn't bear the disgrace.
It's really the only way, Antonio.
What? Ma?
You were always a disobedient boy. It's for the best, son. At least try to die like a real man. Try to stop shaming me.
A truly maternal gesture, huh? What seems equally pathetic of Ma Cipriani is her insistence that Toni Cipriani is not visiting her, even though we all know that's not true. The woman still complains about her son looking quite skinny and that he doesn't bring any girlfriends home. In short, all that's bad is Toni Cipriani. And so, for a large part of the game's storyline, Toni Cipriani has to deal with hired hitmen who hunt him until he officially becomes a member of the Leone crime family. Only then does the man receive a call from his mother, who has called off the hitman. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the woman started praising her son and saying that she never doubted him, which is just ridiculous.
Toni Cipriani here.
Toni, it's your ma. I just heard you've been made. I never doubted you for a second, son. And seeing as how you've finally proven yourself, I'm calling off that contract I put on you. Let's just put it behind us. After all, I only did it with your best interest at heart. What kind of a son makes his ma go to such lengths? See you soon, son. Don't forget about your old ma.
And so, at this stage of the game, it might seem that Toni's relationship with his mother has been repaired, and that it can only get better now. But nothing could be more wrong. The agreement between these two was short-lived. After 3 years of torment by his mother, Toni Cipriani was desperate enough to call Chatterbox FM to ask the host of the radio show for advice. We can also hear some pieces of trivia from the TV series The Sopranos, such as the fact that Toni mentions that he does not go to a shrink while Tony Soprano secretly attended therapy. We suppose the same may be true of Toni. Anyway, let's listen to this conversation together right now.
All right, let's go over here. Hello, caller. You're on Chatterbox.
Yeah? Is that Laszlo?
Yes, it is. Who's this?
My name ain't important. It's real unimportant, okay?
No, not really. I mean, this is a radio show. People usually tell us their name.
My name is real unimportant. And you want to keep being a wise guy, you'll find out just how unimportant. Like, unimportant, I just got shot in the head, unimportant. Do I make myself clear?
Yes. Why are you calling in today?
Because I need some advice. And I ain't doing any of that shrink shit.
If you swear again, we're gonna have to cut you off. This is a family show.
Sorry. I'm just a little unhappy, a bit agitated. Real angry. It's my ma. She don't think I'm a real man. Can you imagine that? I mean, I do a man's job and all, but she treats me like a little boy. All I get is, your pa this and your pa that, and you ain't a real man, Tony, and it's driving me freaking nuts.
Well, Tony...
Tony? How'd you know my name was Tony? You tracing this call? 'Cause if you are, you're gonna get real intimately acquainted with what your brains look like. My name ain't Tony, okay?
Okay.
But my mom, she keeps going, Tony, be a real man. Stand up for yourself. Don't take no shit. But all I do is to be a good son. And I want her to show that she cares for me. Show that she loves me. And, say I was a good kid. But it seems like nothing's ever good enough for her. You know what I mean? What do I do?
Well, sir, in life we have a lot of obligations, and we just kind of have to face up to them. And right now, I'm obligated to play some commercial announcements. We'll be back right after this.
Exactly. Toni Cipriani has no idea how to impress his mother. The man does not hide the fact that he lacks maternal care and love from Ma Cipriani. He would certainly feel better if he got the proverbial pat on the back for a job well done. Meanwhile, he's constantly getting lashes from her, literally and metaphorically. During several missions for Toni Cipriani in GTA 3, we can hear his mother still making fun of her son. For instance, the woman once even hints that Toni may be homosexual, which we can infer from the fact that she mentions in the mission Triads and Tribulations that Toni left Claude one of his lovely letters on a table.
But he left one of his sugary love letters for
We're
you.
at war. The Triads have a fish factory.
At the very end, we move on to the last part of the episode, where we try to explain to you why Toni Cipriani's relationship with his mother was highly inspired by the series The Sopranos. For those who have never watched this series, we remind you that the main character of the series is Tony Soprano, a former capo of the DeMeo family, who later becomes the mafia boss after overthrowing his uncle, Corrado Soprano. What interests us the most, however, is Tony's relationship with Livia Soprano, his mother. Livia's childhood itself was poor and unhappy, and her marriage to the tough and charismatic Johnny Soprano was Livia's ticket to leaving the past behind. Together, they had 3 children, Janice, Barbara, and Tony. Moreover, the woman suffered a lot, including a miscarriage after giving birth to her youngest child, almost losing her life due to heavy bleeding. Unfortunately, life as a housewife was unsatisfactory for Livia. The woman felt overwhelmed by 3 children and unappreciated by her husband, who constantly cheated on her. And although the woman clearly seemed to be dissatisfied and even hated her husband, after his death, she began to consider him a real prude. It's similar to Toni Cipriani's mother, who constantly praises her late husband, but it's possible that he was bad news as well. Either way, it was because the daughters left Livia that all the responsibility of taking care of the woman fell to Toni. It's hard to believe, but on the day of her son's wedding, Livia told her new daughter-in-law, Carmela, that marrying Toni was a mistake, and that eventually, Toni would get bored of her. Of course, Livia had told her that when Toni wasn't around. Moving on, in the first season, Toni visited his mother quite often bringing her groceries or running errands for her. However, it was easy to see that it wasn't easy for Toni. Livia couldn't keep her mouth shut, and despite Toni's many good deeds, Livia insulted her son so often.
What's that?
CD player.
For who? For me? I don't want it.
The arguments between Toni and his mother eventually escalated to the point where Toni decided to place Livia in a nursing home, and her home was to be put up for sale. Therefore, as part of a personal vendetta, Livia decided to provoke 2 people close to Toni. At first, Toni Soprano narrowly escapes death at the hands of 2 assassins, hired by Junior Soprano after learning from Livia that Toni is undermining his power as a mob boss. This situation is very similar to what we saw in the No Son of Mine mission in GTA Liberty City Stories. On another occasion, Toni's best friend, Artie Bucco, points a rifle at Toni after Livia reveals that Toni burned down Artie's restaurant. Fortunately, Toni manages to convince him otherwise. Interestingly, sometime later, Toni Soprano discovered that the FBI had been bugging his mother's nursing home, and recordings of Livia conspiring with Junior had been played. At this point, a plan to get revenge on his mother began to form in Toni's head, but it was quickly thwarted when Livia Soprano suffered a stroke and was hospitalized. At one point, Toni even seemed ready to smother Livia with a cushion, but in the end, he held back. Later, he even publicly threatened to kill her, informing her that he heard from the FBI that she was conspiring against Toni with Junior. It's worth noting that after Toni's stories about his mother, his therapist, Dr. Melfi, stated that Livia may suffer from a borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder. And honestly, looking at all this behavior in the case of the mother of Toni Soprano and Toni Cipriani, we would not be at all surprised that the mothers of both these men are simply mentally ill. To sum up today's episode, we are convinced that Toni's mother's hatred towards her son stems from mental illness, which was inspired by Livia Soprano from The Sopranos. Both women take pleasure in the misfortune of their loved ones and are hypocrites for the show when talking about their husbands. In addition, they deliberately insult the other person, often using rude subtexts. And worst of all, they hire hitmen to kill their sons. If you like this episode, we recommend you watch now the video about what happened to Toni Cipriani before the events of GTA Liberty City Stories. In the meantime, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you in another episode. Bye!